As we've been reporting, Congress certified Donald Trump's second presidential victory on Monday. But 4 years ago, it was a different scene when Trump supporters stormed the U.S. Capitol in an attempt to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election. The Justice Department reports about 140 Capitol police officers were assaulted in the January 6, 2021 attack. At least 5 officers died in the aftermath, including 4 by suicide. CBS News polling finds 19% of American adults approve of the actions of those who forced their way into the Capitol. In 2021, one of the responding officers, Harry Dunn, told the House committee that investigated the attack that this mindset is dangerous for the future of the U.S.
One of the scariest things about January 6th is that the people that were there, even to this day, think that they were right. They think that they were right. And that makes for a scary recipe for the future of this country.
Joining us now is former U.S. Capitol Police Officer Harry Dunn. In 2023, Biden gave Dunn the Presidential Citizens Medal, the second highest civilian award, for his role in protecting the Capitol on January 6th. Harry, thank you for being here. Take us back to that day, your role that day, what you saw, and how it changed you as a person.
Sure. Well, like I said, thank you for having me on. The actions of those insurrectionists, those I called them terrorists before, there was one of the most documented crime scenes in the history of America. People saw what they saw. Police officers were being attacked. Police officers were being bloodied. It wasn't just about getting in there and wandering around and taking a tour of the Capitol. Look at the video that you're showing now. That is assaulting police officers. They aren't hitting a door. They aren't hitting the wall. They're hitting police officers. And just the fact that they talk about pardoning the individuals who are committing those violent acts right there, it's almost a gut punch. And contrast that with what we saw today. There was a lot of jubilation on the House floor. People were taking selfies, pumping fists, whereas 4 years ago today, they were hiding under the chairs and had gas masks on their heads and running in fear. And this was Republicans and Democrats. It wasn't just one party. It was everybody that made up the body of Congress.
I want to get back to the idea of pardons in a second, but you become very outspoken against the Capitol attack. You testified before the House January 6th committee, publicly condemned President-elect Trump, campaigned for Vice President Harris. You ran for Congress in Maryland. How have your former colleagues reacted to you being so outspoken?
Well, it's been mixed. You know, we let's be clear. There are a lot of people on police departments, even with the Capitol Police, that support Donald Trump. So, I mean, there's going to be a mix of people that are pushing back when you're pushing against their candidate.
Even though
And
they're in support of the president-elect, though, they were there that day.
Yeah, I was just about to say, yes, even those individuals. And it's unfortunate. I mean, Brian Sicknick, who lost his life because of the events of January 6th, was a Trump supporter. But he did his job that day. And they know good and well that it wasn't a day of love or peaceful protest. Now, there were people there who were peaceful, sure. But those aren't the people that we're talking about being pardoned right now. But it's just always important for me to stand up and do the right thing. I got a lot of calls from police officers that are still currently serving today with the U.S. Capitol. And one of them said something that was prolific. Here in D.C., we got a big snowstorm, and they said this snowstorm is 4 years too late.
Interesting. So President-elect Trump says he wants to pardon the nearly 1,600 January 6 rioters who have been charged. He's also threatened to prosecute members of the January 6th committee, including former Representative Liz Cheney and now Senator Adam Schiff. What is your response to this? And you had just made a distinction between some of the people who entered the Capitol who weren't assaulting officers. Would you also oppose them being pardoned as well?
Well, that's the thing. You got to look at these people. They're not sitting in prisons. A lot of them were given probation or given a fine or something. Yeah, they committed a crime, and the punishment fit the crime that they committed. People aren't sitting in jail for 4 and 5 years for trespassing in the Capitol. That's a false narrative. It's not even accurate at all. The people that are spending multiple years in jail, with the exception to the leaders of the Proud Boys and those Oath Keepers, they committed violent acts against police officers. And that's why they're in jail. They're not hostages. But Donald Trump it's the rhetoric that he's been saying from day one, that he said that he's going to pardon these individuals. He said that everything against him is a sham. It's a hoax. I mean, this isn't new. He talked about Hillary Clinton.
Can you elaborate on why they're not hostages?
They committed crimes and they're serving their punishments. I mean, hostages are the people that are in missing in from Israel right now. Those are the hostages, the people that are taken away from their families. These people didn't. These people committed crimes, and they're serving a punishment for their crimes. That's not the definition of being a hostage.
You told the Washington Post we have to make sure the history isn't erased. What do you mean by that? And how do we make sure that doesn't happen, particularly when we've been talking about CBS polling that shows public sentiment over what happened on January 6th has shifted quite a bit in the last 4 years?
Well, we're getting closer and closer to those individuals forgetting or whitewashing what happened that day. I mean, just as recently as today, you got members of Congress, members of the Senate that say, "Hey, let's move on from January 6th." And sure, I would love to move on, but not when the president is or the president elect is spewing his rhetoric and falsehoods about what happened that day and what did not happen that day. It was not a day of love. It wasn't a peaceful protest. These people were there to stop the certification of the election because Donald Trump told them to. And that's not my opinion of the situation. Those are what they told us as they were attacking us, as they were storming the Capitol.
And we heard a lot of that just move on from January 6th during the campaign season. But Harry Dunn, we are very appreciative to you for joining us on this day that we commemorate 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you.